Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced, eagle news, because we live in interesting times.
Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net25.
Working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello and welcome to ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles, and joining me today is Steffi Diwan from our EBC Maldives Bureau. Hello, Steffi.
Hi, Alma, and I am Steffi Diwan, your EBC Maldives Bureau, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. A 7.0 magnitude earthquake struck off the southern Philippines, the U.S. Geological Survey said, but there were no immediate reports of damage and a tsunami warning was not issued.
Time is of essence. Time is very important. Say, talking about 6-month delays, we are talking how many people who have to bear this burden. But you cannot stop it. It's the wind of change.
A billionaire Thai opposition figure accused on defaming the country's monarchy has vowed to keep campaigning for reform despite facing what he dubbed a politically motivated lawsuit.
And we'll take a look at a Singapore cold chain facility of one of Asia's top vaccine distributors.
Keep cold chain integrity.
India and Canada have expressed interest to collaborate with the Philippines in their vaccine trials, and officials from the Department of Science and Technology said DOST.
A 7.0 magnitude earthquake struck off the southern Philippines on Thursday, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. But there were no immediate reports of damage and a tsunami warning was not issued. The quake hit about 310 kilometers southeast of Davao City on the main southern island of Mindanao at a depth of 95 kilometers at 8:23 p.m. local time, according to the USGS. Police Chief Captain Glabinary Murillo said residents in the town of Jose Abad Santos near the southern tip of the island lost electricity for about 15 minutes after the quake shook the region, but there was no damage. He said, quote, "From our vantage point at the police station, we saw many residents rushing outside." He said, "We also rushed outside because the police station is a 3-story building." The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology warned of aftershocks, but said damage was not expected. The quake was felt on the northern Indonesian island of Sangihe, but similarly, there were no injuries or damage reported. The Philippines and Indonesia are regularly rocked by quakes due to their positions on the Pacific Ring of Fire, an arc of intense seismic activity that stretches from Japan through Southeast Asia and across the Pacific Basin.
Medics at the Mamuju Regional Hospital battle exhaustion, and the risk of COVID-19 as they race to track scores of people injured by a devastating earthquake on Indonesia's Sulawesi Island. Most of the patients are treated under tents after the hospital's main building was damaged.
Ya sempat sangat kewalahan sekali karena tenaga organik saya juga saya sudah tidak bisa inventarisir karena dia juga terdampak gempa, mereka juga terdampak gempa dan menyelamatkan keluarga mereka. Kemudian jaringan tidak ada. Jadi komunikasi ini benar-benar terputus sehingga kita sangat-sangat kewalahan. Tetapi beberapa daripada tenaga organik itu kan mengungsinya ke sini. Dia memang mengungsi dengan keluarganya di sini sehingga itulah yang kami berdayakan.
In other news, U.S. military prosecutors have filed formal charges against an Indonesian Islamic extremist and two others in the 2002 Bali bombings and 2003 Jakarta attack, according to the Pentagon. Now, the charges were filed nearly 18 years after the three were captured in Thailand and after each has spent more than 14 years in the U.S. military prison in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. The first charge was Indonesian militant Ridwan Isamuddin, better known by his nom de guerre Hambali, the leader of the Indonesian jihadist group Jemaah Islamiyah and believed to have been Al-Qaeda's top representative in the region. The group, with support from Al-Qaeda, carried out bombings of tourist nightclubs on Bali on October 12, 2002 that killed 202 people, and the August 5, 2003 attack on the JW Marriott Hotel in Jakarta that left 12 dead and scores injured. The other two charged Malaysian nationals Mohammed Nazir bin Lep and Mohammed Farik bin Amin were top Hambali aides in Jemaah Islamiyah who had undergone training by Al-Qaeda, according to Guantanamo case documents. It wasn't clear why, after years of delay, that the charges before Guantanamo's military tribunal were announced on Thursday. In 2016, Hambali's bid to be released from Guantanamo was rejected because prosecutors said he still represented a significant threat to the security of the United States. The charges were announced on the first full day of the administration of President Joe Biden.
Meanwhile, the rotting carcass of a nearly 14-meter or 46-foot whale washed up on Batubelig, a Bali beach popular with tourists.
Dia terbawa arus sehingga nanti mati dan seterusnya terdampar di sini. Kami belum bisa melihat apakah ada penyakit atau luka dalam tubuhnya karena sejak kami temukan pagi itu sudah dalam kondisi busuk.
The giant creature, which was first spotted in shallow waters near Batubelig Beach, north of Seminyak. Curious onlookers gathered around the carcass, but the strong smell of a decay put many off, said one local. Bali conservation official Prawono Merwanto said the creature could be a bride's whale and that its carcass was later buried at the beach using an excavator. In July, 10 smaller whales were found dead on a beach in Indonesia's East Nusa Tenggara province. Locals managed to get one surviving members of the pudbak into the water alive. Cross currents of beaches pose a danger to whales as they get caught between reefs close to shore.
In other news, 4 UNICEF schools for Rohingya children in refugee camps in Bangladesh have been destroyed in a fire, according to officials, with the UN Children's Agency calling it arson. It was unclear who might attack the schools, which were empty at the time. But the security situation in the camps housing around 1 million people has worsened in recent months. Last week, a blaze thought to have been started by a gas stove burned down hundreds of bamboo shacks in one of the camps, leaving thousands of the refugees originally from Myanmar homeless. Razwat Hayat, Bangladesh's refugee commissioner, said that he believed the latest fire wasn't started deliberately. He also said that the schools were made of flimsy, flammable materials. However, UNICEF said on Twitter the incident was arson and that it was working with partners to assess the damages of the attack and then speed up the process of rebuilding these learning centers. UNICEF runs about 2,500 learning centers in the 34 refugee camps in Bangladesh's southeastern border district of Cox's Bazar. Some 240,000 Rohingya children studied in them before the pandemic.
On the other news, a billionaire Thai opposition figure accused of defaming the country's monarchy has vowed to keep campaigning for reform, despite facing what is dubbed a politically motivated lawsuit.
Time is of essence. Time is very important. Say, if you're talking about 6-month delays, we are talking how many people who have to bear this burden. How many companies will go bankrupt? How many families have to suffer another 6 months? This company receive public money. Cross the name of the shareholder of this company. Should this company be scrutinized by public? Should it be? I think it should. I think somebody should scrutinize the setup if it benefits this company overly. The information, this information, the public should know, and it's worth the risk. So it's kind of trade-off. I believe that the public should know this information, even if I'm charged with the lèse majesty law. The idea of monarchy reform is the idea whose time has come. You cannot stop it. You can prolong it, but you cannot stop it. It's the wind of change. You cannot stop it.
Senator Jurong Wenjit, founder of the now dissolved Future Forward Party, is facing legal action over a video he posted Monday criticizing the government's vaccine strategy. He raised questions about whether Thailand's vaccination campaign is too reliant on Siam's Bioscience, which is owned by the Crown Property Bureau, a body that manages the royal family's multi-dollar fortune. Thailand has ordered 61 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine, and Siam Bioscience plans to manufacture 200 million doses of that vaccine for the kingdom and wider region each year. The video drew the ire of Thailand's Ministry of Digital Economy and Society, which on Wednesday filed a royal defamation complaint against him. Those convicted under Thailand's strict royal defamation laws can face up to 15 years in jail per charge. And earlier this week, a former civil servant was sentenced to more than 43 years for sharing audio clips deemed defamatory to the monarchy.
Meanwhile, some Southeast Asian top diplomats at the ASEAN Foreign Ministers Retreat, or AMM, on Thursday aired concerns about the recent activities in the South China Sea, described to have eroded trust and confidence in the region. The AMM chairman's statement read, quote, "We reaffirm the need to enhance mutual trust and confidence, exercise self-restraint in the conduct of activities that would complicate or escalate disputes and affect peace and stability, and avoid actions that may further complicate the situation. It underscored the need for peaceful resolution of disputes in accordance with the universally recognized principles of international law, including the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. The group also called for non-militarization and self-restraint in the conduct of all activities by claimants and all other states. The AMM retreat is the first scheduled meeting under Brunei's chairmanship in 2021. During the virtual conference, top diplomats also affirmed support to freedom of navigation and overflight above the South China Sea.
I want to see you and sing off.
You make me feel brand new.
Consistent yung yung high notes mo.
Oh, habang may panahon ika'y magbago.
Yung boses mo, napakataas.
So, I like your performance. Good job.
Ito ang biggest talent competition on Philippine TV and online. Ito po ang Tagis na Nagaling Part 2 Singing Edition.
Welcome back in ASEAN in Focus. In the Laging Handa Special Public Briefing, National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer and Vaccine SAR Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. explained that the participation of the Philippines in the COVAX facility is important to ensure that our country secures 30 to 40 million COVID-19 vaccines free of charge.
Mahalaga po yung COVAX facility kasi nakita po natin yung vaccine po na bibigay po dito ng WHO, UNICEF at saka ng Gavi COVAX ay libre po yun. At saka magagandang tinatawag nating validated ng WHO. Kasama po ang Pfizer, AstraZeneca, COVAX at saka tinatawag natin yung Johnson & Johnson. Ito mga talagang tinitingnan natin at saka yung Sinovac nag-apply din. So nakikita po natin na talagang ito po ay free at the same time it will be delivered to us. So napaka-importante po 'yon. Talagang ito po ay it is a global interest na we can contain yung virus through the WHO concept of equitable access to poor countries like us.
Meanwhile, presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque said there is a possibility that the Pfizer vaccines could be used sooner than Sinovac's scheduled rollout on February 20. The Pfizer vaccine, which requires minus 70 degrees Celsius for its storage, will go to the Metro Manila, Cebu, and Davao. Only the areas mentioned have cold storage facilities that can reach such temperatures for the Pfizer vaccines. Take a look.
At merong petsa po yung pagdating ng Sinovac sa February 20, merong posibilidad na mauna pa ang ilang supplies ng Pfizer dumating kesa sa Pebrero 20. At narinig ko rin po nung huling naging panauhin natin si Secretary Galvez na it will take around 10 days bago mabakunahan ang taong bayan dahil meron silang kinakailangan inventory at pagsisiguro na dapat gawin. So we can expect na kung mas maaga ang darating sa Pfizer, then meron tayong mauunang bakuna within the month of January. Kung darating po ng January 20, baka naman pong pwedeng mapabilisan yung Sinovac para magkaroon tayo ng unang pagturok also within the month of January, which is still feasible kasi sabi niya around 10 days and 10 days after the 20th is still the 31st, and we do have the 31st in this month of January. Well, ang aking computation lang po, January tuloy, February pala. Wala palang 31 ng February, So I'm sorry, I stand corrected. January ako ng January. February 20 po kasi yun, So 10 days, baka Marso na kung darating po ng February 20. Pero sana po nga, mapabilisan, para at least within February, may una nang maturukan with Sinovac. Pero kung darating po na mas maaga, yung Pfizer, baka naman po kung earlier, baka yung 10 days requirement, within February pa rin po. I stand corrected. Po. Sorry po. Kaya mali yung count ko ng January. February pa lang, walang 31.
Here are some images from the Singapore cold chain facility of one of Asia's top vaccine distributors. Swellig Pharma's facility in Singapore has 2 medical-grade freezers that can store Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines at 70 degrees Celsius.
Cold chain storage for vaccines is extremely important first and foremost, for patient safety. So we really want to make sure we keep cold chain integrity to guarantee product stability and product efficacy to preserve the patient safety. Most of the vaccines need to have a cold chain around 2 to 8 degrees. So if we go outside those boundaries, if it gets frozen, it goes more than 8 degrees, we take the vaccine out of the cold chain and usually it is destroyed. So we cannot administer vaccines that have been outside of the cold chain. For example, one of the steps we take when vaccines arrive here in the country, we open the box and we check the temperature controller, and then we measure that, we download that on the computer to make sure we can do audits later on if we see there's something that went wrong. In Asia, we have the same in Korea. Suddenly we have a power cut, we think there's never, but there is. So every single cold room, the cold rooms we have here as well, we have 2 backup generators. So we're on the normal power grid, then we have a first generator that kicks in automatically, all that is automated, and then we have a backup for the first generator as well. So in every single cold room, we have double backup of our cold room. And
The company is gearing up for distribution of COVID-19 vaccines by expanding cold storage capacity in the Philippines, Cambodia, Thailand, and South Korea. The Singapore facility is also equipped for the Moderna vaccine, which must be kept at 20 degrees, and other vaccines that must be stored between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius, such as the Oxford, AstraZeneca, and Sinovac jabs. To make sure products are protected from the tropical climate, staff at the warehouse check thermometers inside the shipments when they arrive to ensure the cold chain is not broken.
Despite the travel restrictions due to the coronavirus disease pandemic, foreigners with valid visas can enter the Philippines, but they're subject to strict health and quarantine protocols according to Malacanang. Now this after the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases amended its earlier resolution on all foreign travelers covered by travel restrictions imposed due to the new COVID-19 variant. The IATF, in its Resolution 95, allowed foreigners with valid visas, including personnel of accredited international organizations and spouse and minor children of Filipino citizens, to visit the Philippines, according to presidential spokesperson Harry Roque in a press statement. Roque said those who arrive for medical and emergency cases, including their medical escorts, if any, are now subject to applicable testing and quarantine protocols as prescribed by the Department of Health. On January 15, the Philippines extended the travel ban on over 30 countries with confirmed cases of B117 SARS-CoV-2 variant, otherwise known as the United Kingdom variant, until the end of January. Included in the travel ban list are UK, Denmark, Ireland, Japan, Australia, Israel, the Netherlands, China, Hong Kong, Switzerland, France, Germany, Iceland, Italy, Lebanon, Singapore, Sweden, South Korea, South Africa, Canada, Spain, the United States, Portugal, India, Finland, Norway, Jordan, Brazil, Austria, Pakistan, Jamaica, Luxembourg, Oman, United Arab Emirates, and Hungary. The travel restriction was implemented after the country recorded the first case of the new variant. The Department of Foreign Affairs on January 17 warned the public against unscrupulous individuals offering fake travel exemption certificates to foreigners who wish to enter the Philippines.
Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Jose Manuel Romualdez, has received his first dose of the Moderna vaccine as part of Washington, D.C.'s phase-based vaccination program. In a statement issued on Tuesday, Romualdez said the creation and deployment of safe and effective vaccines take the world a step closer to defeating the pandemic and moving forward with economic recovery. To bring these vaccines to the Philippine public, he said close collaboration within the international community between governments and private entities was a necessity. Romualdez, one of the Philippines government officials working to procure up to 20 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine from American pharmaceutical company Moderna, received the inoculation a few days before the inauguration of U.S. President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. During the hearing of the House of Representatives Committee on Health last week, the chief implementer of the National Policy Against COVID-19, Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr., with guidance from Romualdez, said Moderna vaccine would soon be secured and divided equally between the government and the private sector.
India and Canada have expressed interest to collaborate with the Philippines in their vaccine trials. An official from the Department of Science and Technology said in an interview with the Philippine News Agency or PNA over the weekend, DOST Philippine Council for Health Research and Development Executive Director Jaime Montoya said the two countries sent separate proposals coming from the University of Saskatchewan in Canada and from Bharat Biotech in India that are developing the vaccines for use in trials. Montoya said both countries are possible partners of the Philippines. He also said that India would start the clinical trial Phase 3 in September, while Canada may likely start the Phase 1 in the first quarter of this year. Clinical trials would be done in the Philippines once approved and permitted by the FDA of all countries concerned.
shows and exhibitions were one of the most effective and engaging ways to connect with existing and potential customers. But the spread of COVID-19 changed all that with the large cancellations of both global and domestic events. Now that health and safety protocols and social distancing are a must, the days of the crowded trade show floors are so 2019. In this week's episode of Open for Business, we will look into how virtual expos can fill the void to still help MSMEs expand their businesses and continue to engage with customers.
Let's collaborate, let's communicate. Only together, we will become stronger.
David Abrenilla, the founder and Chief Events Officer of Mediacom Solutions, Inc., will join us in this week's Open for Business.
Welcome back. Underwater divers in Thailand are having a new initiative to help protect marine life and to aid in the fight against the coronavirus. Let's find out how they are doing this. Joining us live is Cristel Di Marucot from our EBC Thailand Bureau. Hello, Cristel.
Good afternoon, Alma, and happy Friday to everyone. Here are some good news from Thailand. Underwater divers in plastic-choked water off the coast of Thailand snipped through discarded nets tangled around a reef, a new initiative helping protect marine life and aiding the fight against coronavirus. The ghost nets discarded from the country's lucrative fishing industry are a deadly source of plastic pollution, ensnaring turtles and cutting into delicate coral beds. Left unattended, they could stay adrift for decades, either entrapping or becoming the food of marine animals, says Ingpat Pakchairat Chakul of the London-based Environmental Justice Foundation. Ingpat was speaking to AFP during a recent boat trip off the coast of Chonburi province, as a team of more than 30 divers hacked away at stubborn threads enveloping a reef 27 meters or 90 feet below the vessel. She is part of Net-Free Seas, a project that fetches used nets and turns them into new plastic products such as face shields. It aims to prove that protecting sea creatures can be commercially viable in Thailand, one of the world's biggest producers of ocean waste. The initiative also comes in the wake of a growing local outcry over the lethal effects of plastic on marine life. Chaturatap says, and I quote, "More than 70% of them are injured from the ghost nets and have cuts deep into their bodies." End of quote. Net-Free Seas has salvaged 15 tons of waste netting from sea waters in its first year of operation. It's a win-win situation, says Somporn Pantumas, a fisherman in seaside Rayong. The first fishing community gets to have another source of income. The beach and the sea are clean, and the fishermen find a sense of camaraderie. Collected nets are sent to be washed, shredded, mixed with other discarded plastics, and melted into shape at Quali Design, a small business that molds homewares out of recycled goods. Quali is using the nets to make face shields, alcohol bottles, spray bottles, and table divider screens used in restaurants around Bangkok since the onset of the pandemic. And that's the latest news here in Thailand. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you, Cristel, for your updates there in Bangkok. Thank you for your time. Have a great Friday.
Yeah, thank you, you too. Reporting live from Bangkok, this is Cristel Di Marucot. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, in a laging handa public briefing, DTI Philippines Secretary Ramon Lopez urged all micro, small, and medium enterprises and companies in the country to be digital and support e-commerce. He said that by the 2020 and our country is still under strict community quarantine, it is clear that many businesses have used virtual transaction in response to the government's call to stop the spread of the COVID-19 virus.
Yung sabi nga nila, hindi naman maging mahirap, maging better yung 2021 kasi nga sama talaga yung nangyari noong 2020. The height of mga lockdowns natin, halos walang economic activity. Sabi natin, less than half lang ang inallow for certain months nung umpisa ng lockdown. So yung ngayon po talagang nakikita natin marami talagang nakaka-recover. And statistics show na even nung as we were ending 2020, the fact na nagre-reopen na ang ating economy, dumami po yung registration ng businesses versus previous year. Lalo na po yung mga digital, na in-encourage din natin ng mga SMEs at mga maraming kumpanya to go digital, mag-e-commerce para mas lumago pa yung kanilang mga inumpisahang mga negosyo. Kaya ho, ang ating registration dyan ay more than 40 times. Hindi 40%, 40 times. So dating mga less than 2,000, 1,700 lang ang registered as of March, ay umakyat to sa mga 88,000 towards November. So talagang 1,700 up to 80,000, 88,000. So ang laki talaga nung nilaki ng mga nagrehistro, lalo na dito sa online businesses po. So talagang ang mga kababayan natin, likhaing entrepreneurial, umahanap ng paraan para talaga rin makasurvive. So maraming mga negosyo talagang nagsulputan dyan at mga nagre-rehistro naman po.
The Department of Trade and Industry Secretary Ramon Lopez also bared on Thursday that his office received a letter from Nissan Philippines announcing the shutdown of its assembly plant in the country. The announcement of Nissan to close their assembly operations in the country is regrettable, as these developments all the more demonstrate the critical situation of the local motor vehicle industry, according to Lopez in a statement. Nissan assembles its Almera model in the Philippines. Some 133 workers are employed in the production facility. The DTI chief said, and I quote, "The stoppage of Almera's assembly operations, following closely that of Honda and Isuzu, only highlights that the local auto assembly industry is critically impacted by the surge in imports and will thus benefit from the time-bound safeguard duty. Starting January 20 this year, the DTI imposed provisional safeguard duties of 70,000 pesos on imported passenger cars and 110,000 on imported light commercial vehicles. The safeguard measures will take effect for 200 days.
A subsidiary of Universal Robina Corp, or URC, has again been named as one of Vietnam's top sustainable businesses for 2020. URC, one of the Philippines' largest food and beverage firms, was among 500 companies in Vietnam shortlisted for this award. It said in a statement Thursday. These companies met the CSI index of 127 indicators in 4 areas: sustainability results, competent governance, environmental protection, and sustainable labor practices. This prestigious award will be driving force for URC Vietnam to continue to operate and spread sustainable values in Vietnam based on 3 pillars: environmental protection and human development and quality products, said Laurent Levan, Sr., Vice President and Regional Directors for URC Indochina. The award was handed out during the Vietnam Corporate Sustainability Forum 2020, organized by the Vietnam Chamber of Commerce and Industry and attended by Vietnam's Vice President Dong Phi Nguyen Tin and Deputy Prime Minister Vu Duc Dam.
Meanwhile, Asian markets fell Friday as investors took a breather following a strong week for global equities as Joe Biden took up residence in the White House, though there are concerns about the outlook for his new stimulus proposal. Now, the new president spent his first full day firing out a series of executive orders to kickstart the government's battle against COVID-19 as he looks to get the world's top economy back on its feet, including ramping up its vaccination program. But he also warned that the country would likely see its 500,000th death next month. As the disease surges through though there was some optimism, as data suggested infections appear to be plateauing. The virus continues to be the main stumbling block for markets, which is playing off against long-term optimism that the planet will eventually return to normal as more people get a jab. Biden's $1.9 trillion rescue plan has been a key driver for buying in recent weeks. But there's a fear it could be watered down by growing opposition among Republicans and some Democrats to such a big spending spree just a month after a $900 billion package was passed. Now, Asia was in the red, with Hong Kong retreating on profit-taking after cracking 30,000 points Thursday for the first time since April 2019, though analysts say a flood of cash from mainland Chinese traders should buoy the market for some time to come. Tokyo, Shanghai, Sydney, Singapore, Taipei, and Manila also fell, though there were gains in Seoul and Wellington.
Meanwhile, Myanmar on Monday announced it was canceling contracts with a Thai industrial giant to work on a controversial deep sea port project. The Dawei mega project was touted as a way to encourage foreign investment in Myanmar as it emerged from decades of military rule, but it has been hit by numerous setbacks, including funding struggles and local opposition, as well as support the long-delayed project around the southern town of Dawei aims to develop an industrial area of around 200 square kilometers. The committee in charge of the Dawei Special Economic Zone said Monday it had lost confidence in Italian Thai Development ITD after repeated issues. Announcing the cancellation, the Dawei Special Economic Zone Management Committee complained of repeated delays, continuing breaches of financial obligation under the contracts and the concessionaries, failure to confirm the financial capacity to proceed with development. The chair of the Dawei Management Committee, Tun Nang, said Myanmar would now look for new developers to invest in the projects. It could not be reached for immediate comment. The Bangkok-based firm had already scaled back its involvement in the project in 2013, while Japan has shown some interest in getting involved.
In other news, the 500th anniversary of the victory of Mactan in the Philippines' role in the circumnavigation of the world marks the issuance of the 5,000 peso Lapu-Lapu commemorative banknote and medal. Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Governor Benjamin Diokno, whose message was read by BSP Deputy Governor and Officer in Charge Francisco Daquila Jr., said the 2021 Quincentennial commemorations in the Philippines, or QCP, could not have been celebrated at a more opportune time. Let's listen in.
As we celebrate the 500th anniversary of the first circumnavigation of the world and the victory of our ancestors in the Battle of Mactan, let us take this opportunity to give Lapu-Lapu the honor he truly deserves.
The bravest and most fearsome of them was Lapu-Lapu, the chieftain of Mactan, who led his warriors in a famous battle against the would-be conquerors. Lapu-Lapu's heroism gained the respect and admiration of succeeding generations of Filipinos. Today, we pay him the same respect and immortalize his glory through the 5,000 peso commemorative banknote and medal.
Now, the obverse side of the banknote shows a young Lapu-Lapu, the image of the Battle of Mactan, the QCP logo, and a large outrigger warship used by native Filipinos, which is known as Karawoka. The reverse side, meanwhile, of the commemorative paper bill depicts a Philippine eagle, or the manawal, which he said embodies the ancient Visayan belief that living creatures originated from an eagle. A coconut tree can also be seen on the reserve side, since this is well known in the Magellan Elcano expedition, and a photo of the highest mountain in the country that can be found in Mindanao, Mount Apo.
Bukayo, merengue, panutsa, yema, at marami pang iba. Talaga namang patok sa Pinoy ang matatamis.
Ang ginagawa lang namin, candy lang po, lollipop. Hanggang sa gumawa na rin kami ng lahat po ng klase ng candies.
Sabi ko nga po, bakit ang hindi ako maggawa ng pastillas? Ay malaking tulong ang panutsa. Yun na nga ang hanap buhay namin dito sa Taal.
Masasabi ko naman po talaga na stable at napakaganda po ng naging pasok po ng flow ng amin pong income.
Ating ding aalamin kung paano mo pwedeng gawin ang mga ito sa sarili mong bahay. Ako po, si Robin Padilla. At ito po ang ulat. Kagapay sa hanap buhay.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. Home to flying foxes and a 70-meter stalagmite resembling a dog's paw, Sondung Cave is an otherworldly wonder that has reshaped the lives of the surroundings community since it opened for boutique tourism in 2013. With only 1,000 visitors can visit the cave each year.
Chị Linh, anh Hiếu.
Tôi thì đã từng đi khoảng hơn 30 quốc gia và tất nhiên mỗi nơi có một cái vẻ đẹp khác nhau. Khi đến với Sơn Đoòng thì đây là một cái vẻ đẹp vô cùng độc đáo. Tôi nghĩ đây là một trong cái niềm tự hào không chỉ riêng cho Quảng Bình mà đó là niềm tự hào của Việt Nam khi chúng ta có được một cái hang Sơn Đoòng thật là tuyệt vời. Do đó khi Covid xảy ra thì chúng tôi không thể đón được khách du lịch quốc tế tham gia các tour của chúng tôi, đặc biệt là tour Sơn Đoòng. Do đó chúng tôi đã phải tập trung vào cái thị trường nội địa, thị trường khách trong nước để quảng bá, để thu hút khách du lịch trong nước tham gia các cái tour của Osalis.
đặc biệt là Tô Sơn Đòn.
Indonesian fifth seed Anthony Ginting suffered an unexpected defeat at badminton's Thailand Open on Thursday to Hong Kong's Lee Chung-kyu, who moved into the quarterfinals with a 21-19, 13-21, 21-12 win. Ginting was Indonesia's last remaining hope after Jonathan Christie's exit on Wednesday, but despite a fight back in the second game, the 20th-ranked Lee was able to close out the match. It was Ginting's second loss to Lee, who upset the Indonesian in the final of the 2019 Hong Kong Open. He'll face off against Denmark's Hans Christian Verengas, who beat Ginting's teammate Cesar Hiren Rustavito 21-11, 15-21, 17-21. Thai star Ratchanok Intanon won a hard-fight nail-biter against South Korean Sung Ji-yoon, ranked 15th in the world, who sent the former world #1 crisscrossing the court during extended rallies in her 19-21, 24-22, 21-17 win. Meeting Ratchanok in the quarterfinals will be Indian star PV Sindhu, who disposed of Malaysia's Rizona Selvaduray in a rapid 21-10, 21-12, dusting, eager to erase the memory of a surprise first-round exit a week earlier in Bangkok. We all win and lose, so I took last week in a really positive way and came in much stronger this week, according to sixth seed Sindhu said. Now, Denmark's Victor Axelsen continued his quest for back-to-back titles as he dominated Thailand's Kunlavut Vitid Sarn 21-11, 21-13. Steffi, thank you very much for joining me today. You have a great weekend. Stay safe. Enjoy your weekend. I know it's a beautiful island over there.
Thank you, Alma. And thank you for joining us today here in ASEAN in Focus. I am Steffi Dihuan, your EBC Maldives Bureau. And we live in interesting times.
And I'm Alma Angeles. We'll see you back on Monday. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.